Imagine a vast, untamed forest, where the world's greatest empire met its match. A place where fierce tribes fought to keep their freedom, changing the course of history forever. This is the story of Germany, born from the ashes of battle, shaped by the clash of empires, and forged in the fire of resilience. Join us as we journey through 2 millennia of triumph, tragedy, and transformation. Chapter 1. The Forest That Shattered Rome. The true beginning of German history wasn't in cities or kingdoms, but deep inside a dark and muddy forest. In the year 9 CE, 3 full Roman legions marched into a dark forest in northern Europe. They were never seen again. What happened that changed the course of history and marked the beginning of something that would one day become Germany? At this time, Rome was the most powerful empire in the world. They had already conquered modern-day France, and now they wanted more. So they set their sights on Germania, the land beyond the Rhine River. Emperor Augustus sent a man named Varus to govern the area, along with 3 legions, about 20,000 Roman soldiers. With them was a young warrior named Arminius. He was Germanic by birth, but had been trained by the Romans. They trusted him completely. But Arminius had a secret. He hadn't forgotten who he was. Behind Rome's back, he united several Germanic tribes, groups that were normally divided and often at war with each other. Arminius tricked Varus into marching deep into the forest, saying there was a rebellion they needed to stop. It was a trap. The Romans weren't ready for what was coming. For 3 days, they were attacked from all sides. The forest was muddy, narrow, and hard to move through. Arrows came from the trees. Spears flew from the shadows. The Roman soldiers couldn't fight the way they were trained. Their lines broke. Panic spread. It was total chaos. By the end, almost every Roman soldier was dead. General Varus took his own life. The Roman eagle standards, symbols of their pride, were lost. When Emperor Augustus heard the news, he was heartbroken. According to stories, he shouted, "Varus, give me back my legions." After this disaster, Rome gave up trying to conquer Germania. The Rhine River became the permanent border of the empire. The Germanic tribes had stopped the world's most powerful army. The tribes didn't stay united forever. They would fight each other again, and centuries would pass before Germany became a real nation. But this battle, this moment, was important. It showed the world that Rome could be beaten. It planted the first seeds of German identity, a proud, free people who refused to be ruled. And Arminius, the man who betrayed Rome, would one day be remembered as a hero. Chapter 2. The Holy Roman Empire. A crown, a dream, and 1,000 pieces of a broken nation. After the fall of Rome, Europe was in chaos. No emperors, no central power, only warlords and wandering kings. But in the year 800, something changed. A new emperor was crowned, one who would revive the idea of a Roman empire. His name was Charlemagne. Charlemagne was the king of the Franks, a warrior king who ruled over much of Western Europe. On Christmas Day in the year 800, Pope Leo III crowned him Emperor of the Romans in Rome. This moment was meant to show that the Roman Empire was back, under Christian rule. And it was the beginning of what would later be called the Holy Roman Empire. Many historians later joked, it was neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. Why? It wasn't very unified. It didn't rule from Rome. And it had no strong central power like the old Roman Empire. Instead, it was a loose collection of German-speaking kingdoms, duchies, and cities, each with its own ruler, army, and laws. Local lords collecting taxes. Rival knights clashing in a field. The emperor had a crown, but little real control. He had to deal with dozens of powerful nobles, bishops, and princes who ruled their lands like mini-countries. This created a strange balance. A single empire in name, but divided in practice. Still, this messy system lasted for 1,000 years, shaping much of what would one day become Germany. The Holy Roman Empire was plagued by constant conflict. Kings versus emperors. Princes versus each other. Catholics versus Protestants. One of the worst was the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, a brutal, bloody conflict that left Germany shattered and starving. By the 1700s, the empire was crumbling. And then came Napoleon Bonaparte, the French leader who stormed across Europe and tore apart the old order. In 1806, the last Holy Roman Emperor, Francis II, gave up the crown. After more than 1,000 years, the empire was over. But the dream of German unity was not. The Holy Roman Empire wasn't a strong country, but it left behind a shared language, a shared religion, and a shared culture among German-speaking people. It planted the idea that Germans could one day be united again, under one flag. That idea would take another 60 years to come true. But the seed was already there. While the Holy Roman Empire struggled to hold its many pieces together, German lands quietly became a cradle of creativity and thought. Amidst castles and cathedrals, the seeds of philosophy were planted, ideas that would one day challenge the very nature of knowledge and existence. Thinkers like Immanuel Kant, whose groundbreaking work would shape modern philosophy, and Friedrich Nietzsche, who dared to question morality itself, traced their roots to these lands. At the same time, music flourished, melodies that stirred hearts and minds. Johann Sebastian Bach's compositions would echo through centuries, inspiring generations to come. Even in times of political fragmentation, Germany's spirit burned bright, building a rich cultural heritage that would become its lasting legacy. Chapter 3: Martin Luther and the Reformation. One hammer, one piece of paper, and the blow that shook all of Europe. Germany wasn't united yet, but something was about to happen that would split it in two. It didn't start with a war. It started with a monk and a hammer. Martin Luther was a German monk and professor. Like many others at the time, he saw corruption in the Catholic Church, especially the selling of indulgences, papers that claimed to forgive sins, for a price. He believed forgiveness couldn't be bought. It had to come from faith alone. On October 31st, 1517, Luther walked up to the church door in Wittenberg, Germany. He nailed a list of 95 arguments, called the 95 Theses, to the door. It was meant to start a debate. Instead, it started a revolution. Luther's ideas spread fast, thanks to a new invention, the printing press. Soon, people all over Germany and beyond were questioning the church. This movement became known as the Protestant Reformation. People protested against the power of the Pope and called for a return to simpler, personal faith. Not everyone agreed with Luther. Some princes supported him. Others stayed loyal to the Catholic Church. This led to major fights, rebellions, and even wars. Germany became religiously divided, Catholic in some areas, Protestant in others. And that division still exists today. Martin Luther never meant to break the church, but his actions changed Europe forever. People began to think for themselves. New churches were born, and Germany found itself in the middle of a spiritual and political earthquake. One monk with a hammer had just changed the world. Chapter 4: The 30 Years' War. A war of faith, power, and survival that tore Germany apart. In the early 1600s, Germany was a patchwork of kingdoms and principalities, some Protestant, some Catholic. Tensions were rising like a storm. And then, the storm broke. The war began in 1618, when Protestant nobles in Bohemia rebelled against their Catholic king. But it quickly grew into a massive conflict, pulling in foreign armies, kings, and empires. What started as a religious fight became a struggle for power across Europe. For 30 years, Germany became a battlefield. Towns were burned. Farms were destroyed. People starved or fled. It's estimated that up to 1/3 of Germany's population died, making it one of the deadliest wars in European history. The Holy Roman Empire was weak and divided. Princes fought each other, and foreign powers like Sweden, France, and Spain took sides. Germany was caught in the middle, its land and people paying the highest price. Finally, in 1648, the war ended with the Peace of Westphalia. It changed Europe forever. The Holy Roman Empire lost even more power. Germany remained divided, fragmented into hundreds of small states. But the idea of religious tolerance began to take root. The 30 Years' War left Germany broken and scarred. But it also reshaped Europe's political map. The war showed the dangers of mixing religion and politics. And it set the stage for the slow, difficult journey toward German unity, still many years away. Chapter 5: Rise of Prussia. From a small kingdom to a powerful force, Prussia's climb to dominance. In the 1700s, Germany was still a patchwork of tiny kingdoms. But one kingdom began to stand out, Prussia. Led by a brilliant and fierce king named Frederick the Great, Prussia would change the game forever. Frederick II, known as Frederick the Great, was a skilled military leader and a sharp thinker. He believed a strong army was the key to power. Under his rule, Prussia built one of the best armies in Europe. He fought wars, expanded territory, and made Prussia respected and feared. Prussia's soldiers were famous for their discipline and training. Every man was expected to serve, and the army was well organized and efficient. This militarism became a defining part of Prussian, and later German, identity. By the late 1700s and early 1800s, Prussia had become the strongest German state. It rivaled Austria, controlled important land, and influenced other German princes. Prussia's rise set the stage for a future where one kingdom might finally unite Germany. Frederick the Great's vision and Prussia's military strength became the foundation for German unification. But it also created a culture that valued order, discipline, and power, traits that would shape Germany's future in both good and bad ways. Chapter 6: Unification of Germany. The iron will of one man, 3 wars, and a new empire born. By the late 1800s, Germany was still divided, dozens of kingdoms and states, each with their own rulers. But one man had a plan to change everything. His name was Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck was a master of politics and power. He believed that blood and iron, war and strength, were the only ways to unite Germany. Using clever diplomacy and military force, he set out to bring the German states together under Prussian leadership. First, Bismarck fought Austria in 1866, defeating them in a quick war that gave Prussia control over northern Germany. Then, in 1870, war with France erupted. Bismarck used the conflict to rally the German states around Prussia against a common enemy. The war ended with a stunning German victory. On January 18, 1871, in the famous Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the German Empire was proclaimed. King Wilhelm I of Prussia was crowned German Emperor. For the first time, most German-speaking lands were united under one empire. The unification of Germany changed the balance of power in Europe forever. It created a strong, industrial nation with a powerful military. But it also set the stage for future conflicts that would shake the world. Chapter 7: World War I and the Fall of the Empire. A war of machines and mud that shattered an empire. In 1914, Europe was a tinderbox ready to explode. Germany, proud and powerful, marched into the First World War. A conflict unlike anything the world had seen before. World War I was a brutal fight of trenches, machine guns, and endless mud. Millions of soldiers faced unimaginable horrors. Germany's military was strong but stretched thin on multiple fronts. As the war dragged on, Germany faced food shortages, bombings, and growing unrest at home. By 1918, defeat was clear. Soldiers and civilians alike were exhausted and desperate. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany's emperor, lost control. On November 9, 1918, he abdicated the throne and fled to exile. Germany was no longer an empire. It was a republic. The new government, called the Weimar Republic, promised democracy and peace. But the wounds of war ran deep, and Germany faced many challenges ahead. World War I changed Germany forever. It ended an empire, tore families apart, and planted the seeds of unrest that would shape the next decades. The story of a proud empire was over, but the story of Germany was far from finished. Chapter 8: Rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany. From despair to dictatorship, and a world plunged into darkness. Germany is a land of contrasts and contradictions, a place where the sublime and the sinister were born side by side. It's the homeland of Johann Sebastian Bach, whose music lifts the soul with beauty and grace. Yet it is also the birthplace of Adolf Hitler, whose ideology plunged the world into darkness. This paradox lies at the heart of Germany's complex story, reminding us that history is never simple, and that greatness and tragedy can come from the same soil. After World War I, Germany was broken, economically shattered, politically unstable, and full of anger. In these desperate times, a dangerous man rose to power. Adolf Hitler promised to restore Germany's pride and greatness. Using fiery speeches and ruthless tactics, he gained followers fast. By 1933, Hitler became Chancellor and soon turned Germany into a totalitarian state. Hitler's aggressive policies led to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. Germany invaded countries across Europe, starting a war that would last 6 years and cost millions of lives. Behind the war, the Nazis carried out a horrifying plan, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews and millions of others were systematically murdered in concentration camps. It was one of the darkest chapters in human history. By 1945, Allied forces closed in. Cities were destroyed by bombs and battles. Hitler's regime collapsed, and Germany was left in ruins. Germany's journey through the 20th century was marked by extremes, incredible achievements, shadowed by unspeakable horrors. After the devastation of World War II and the painful division of the Cold War, the nation faced a profound question. What does it truly mean to be German? Was it the culture of great philosophers and composers, the resilience of a reunited people, or the responsibility to remember and learn from the darkest chapters of history? This search for identity continues today, as Germany strives to build a society that honors its past while embracing diversity, democracy, and hope for the future. Nazi Germany's rise and fall showed the dangers of hate, dictatorship, and war. It left deep scars on Germany and the world that still demand remembrance and vigilance. Chapter 9. Division of Germany, the Cold War. A nation divided, a city walled, and hope that refused to die. After World War II, Germany was left broken, occupied by the victorious Allies. But peace came with a price. Germany was split into two very different countries. In 1949, two Germanys were born. West Germany, a democracy supported by the West. East Germany, a communist state controlled by the Soviet Union. Families, friends, and a whole nation were divided by ideology and power. In 1961, the East German government built the Berlin Wall, a concrete barrier cutting through the heart of the city. It wasn't just a wall, it was a symbol of the Cold War. People on opposite sides could see each other, but crossing was deadly. West Germany thrived with freedom and growing wealth. East Germany faced strict government control, surveillance, and limited freedoms. Yet, despite the division, hope for reunification never died. Then, in 1989, after years of protests and changing politics, the Berlin Wall fell. People from East and West flooded across, celebrating the end of division. Germany was on the path to reunification. The Cold War divided Germany physically and politically, but it also showed the strength of hope and the desire for freedom. The fall of the Berlin Wall became a symbol, not just for Germany, but for the whole world. Chapter 10. Modern Germany, leader of Europe. A reunited nation, facing the future with strength and humility. In 1990, after decades of division, Germany became one country again. The Berlin Wall was gone, and a new chapter had begun. Chancellor Helmut Kohl led the reunification process, bringing East and West Germany together. It was a huge challenge, economically, socially, and politically, but hope and determination pushed the country forward. Today, Germany is Europe's strongest economy and a key leader in the European Union. Its industries, technology, and culture influence the world. But Germany also remembers its past, with humility and responsibility. Germany faces new challenges: immigration and integration, the rise of far-right groups, balancing tradition with modern values. The country continues to work toward a future that is united and inclusive. From ancient tribes to a powerful modern nation, Germany's story is one of resilience. It's a story of learning from the past, leading with courage, and building a better future for all. Germany stands today not just as a country, but as a symbol of strength, unity, and hope for Europe and the world. If you found this journey through history meaningful, don't forget to give it a like. Subscribe for more powerful stories that shaped our world.